What is up, everybody? ZXRyuu coming back to you with another video from, or another game, I guess, from my childhood. So we're going to do Radical Rex this time. You might have seen this video from when we did it during the Dream Marathon. That was just kind of a speed run attempt. Not really like a let's play, but so today I'm going to up the difficulty level because the game defaults to easy. So that's what I did during the Dream Marathon, but today we're going to do the game on medium instead. So I guess we'll go ahead and start it up, and I'll kind of talk about it as we go along here. So, all right, so turn it up to medium. You can adjust the sound to have just the music or just the special effects, the sound effects. You can change the controller pad setup to be more to your liking, I guess. The default is C is jump, B is flame, and A is kick, and up and A is roar. There's also a sound test and an animation test as well, so we're not going to mess around with that. So we just want to set the difficulty to medium and then start. So go ahead and let the story play out here a little bit. So, and I guess the thing is that Rex is either asleep or like too dumb to be controlled or something. I don't really know what's what's going on there, what the deal is with that. But so anyway, the basic premise of the game is that you control this dinosaur whose name is Rex, and he's pretty radical because this game came out in the 90s, so everything had to be radical and tubular and gnarly and all of that. So this is definitely a 90s game. So there's I guess kind of some starting points of the game. You can pick up flame power-ups. You can pick up roaring power-ups. And you're also picking up these dino eggs. You kind of use them to do bonus levels a little bit later on, depending on how many you get. So if you get over a certain amount, I don't remember what the amount is actually, to be honest, to get the bonus level. I think it's like over 60 maybe, but I don't remember for sure. You can duck. Kind of up at this is a tiki torch for checkpoints. Up at the top, there's the life bar. There's the number of lives, the number of dragon eggs. Dragon eggs, wow. No, this is not Spyro the Dragon. We'll get to that later. There's dinosaur eggs. And then there's the flame power-up meter and then the roar meter. So your flame gets bigger and bigger the more power-ups you get in this kind of thing. So these special things here give you a special power. I used to call them darts as a child. I don't know if that's really what they're called or not. I didn't look in the manual to see. Yes, back when games had manuals, to see what those are called. But anyway, so we have the dart power-up. So it does kind of like an instant stun on enemies, but if you get hit once, it takes it away from you. So like that. Now I won't have it to mash out of that. So certain enemies can like jump on top of you, or what, hurt you in different ways. So so this game is pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot to it. But again, I've mostly played this game on easy, so so I guess on medium you have to get more than what I got there to get the bonuses. So I'm not really sure what the credentials are, because I've only really played this game on easy mode. So so let's see here. This is a game that my parents bought for me, pretty close to the pretty close to, or if not at the same time that they bought the Sega Genesis back in around 95 or something like that. So 94, 95, somewhere in there. I found this game when I first started playing it to be pretty challenging. Even on easy mode, it was pretty challenging. But I really only thought it had like one difficulty for the longest time, you know. So, so let's see here. There's 5 different levels. There's a jungle level. There's this level, which is the swamp level. And then there's a level called Inner Works, which is like the inside of a dinosaur, I guess, or some creature. And so you're just trying to get, you get eaten and then you get out, and I'll let you kind of figure that out on your own where you get out. Let's see here. After that, there's a dinosaur graveyard. This isn't like the elephant graveyard in Lion King. But there's an elephant graveyard. No, there's not an elephant graveyard. This is a dino graveyard. Darn it. So you go through that. And then kind of beyond that, there's one more level, and I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. You also, when you have the darts, you can just shoot the enemies. You can just shoot the enemies twice and they'll disappear rather than having to kick them. That icon up there is invincibility. So flashing like this, you won't take any damage, obviously. So yeah, I can't remember what the name of the last stage is at the moment. But that's where you kind of go find the main antagonist, Scritch, spelled with 2 I's. And Scritch is controlling all of these dinosaurs that you're going around and defeating. So you're attempting to free his hold from the dinosaurs. Wow, I'm doing really bad with that. So if you don't kick the enemies, they'll eventually just kind of unfreeze, and then they'll start attacking you again. So for the longest time when I was playing this game, it really took me a long time to... Yes, those are spikes, and they will kill you. They're instant death in this game. So for the longest time when I was young playing this game, it took me a really long time to even get to just different parts of the stage. You don't really take fall damage in this game, but it does kind of show that it looks like you might, but you don't. So, and the hearts obviously heal you, and they heal you to full health in this game. So, you can't kill the piranhas, but you can kind of push them around. So, and this is a little bird that carries you from one place to the other. So. There were a lot of scary jumps kind of for me as a child, and some other things that just were really difficult to try and figure out when I was playing through this game. So this is the inner work stage now, so we get eaten by some giant dinosaur. We have to kind of move around and get out. So just trying to get through these stages, you know, in the first place was pretty difficult for me. Just because there's so many things going on in this game, and you can die from a lot of things, and a lot of enemies, you know, really hurt you, and you know, there's a lot of instant death from spikes and acid, like in here, stomach acid. So. Yeah, but basically the premise is to go through all of these stages and go defeat Scritch to get the dinosaurs back. I'm not sure if this is the only game in the series. I never really kind of looked some of the stuff up before I start playing to see if there's any, you know, other games in the series, or if there's only the one. So, but if there are more games in the series, I only have this one. So, and also come to find out from the previous Math Blaster video, it turns out that there was a sequel, but it was only on the PC. I think it was for Windows 95, maybe. So, but there was a sequel to this game, or not to this game, but to the Math Blaster game. So I kind of looked that up afterward because I was curious if there was another. Let's see here. Some of the mechanics of this game, I guess. You can short hop in this game. You know, by holding the button a different amount, you can short hop or full hop. Let's see here. For like momentum shifting, it's a little bit harder to kind of shift your momentum around in this game. Rex is pretty heavy in the way that he feels when you play. So you really have to kind of lean into each move that you do in order to get anywhere. So those are spikes, and they are instant death. And also, what's interesting is this whole stage is really rubbery, so you can kind of rubber band a lot. You can bounce on the ceilings. You can bounce on the ground. You know, you can bounce yourself into spikes or other obstacles. This whole stuff right here kind of prevents you from moving very much. It just prevents you from jumping very high, so it's kind of strange to move around. So what the difficulties do is that they add in more enemies and different types of enemies. So there's more you have to kind of work around when you're playing on higher difficulties. The stages themselves don't change or anything, but the amount of enemies that you have to fight do change. So that can be, you know, pretty challenging to get around. So. And so with this inner work stage, some rooms, like you saw there's a previous room that some things kind of loop back on themselves. So you have to kind of figure out where you need to go and what you need to do, and you know, it might require a little bit of backtracking. That was kind of pointless. You just kind of have to work your way around the stage. That guy will crush you. I think that's instant death, if I remember right. And these platforms kind of explode, and you have only so much time to get off of them. The timing of this game is actually pretty precise. Like, you know, it'll give you a little bit of lenience, but not a whole lot. So you need to really kind of, you know, commit to jumps and stuff, and just do that. Don't kind of flippantly do stuff, I guess, is, you know, kind of like a lot of platformers. If you really kind of commit to things, you need to do them, or else they'll punish you for it. So in each of these little intro screens kind of give you an idea of what types of enemies you'll be seeing in each stage. And the little baby dinosaur gets tired. But yeah, there's a lot of routes and things you can take through the stage to get to the end. There is only one exit point, so that kind of changes things. And also, some enemies are invincible. Like, you can't defeat them. Like those hips or whatever that they're walking there. You can't defeat those. So you just have to kind of get around them. Those are spikes also, as you're probably figuring out. These little things here, you can break them, but you really shouldn't, because there's some wind in this stage that comes up that is really obnoxious. It pushes you around a lot. And it just makes it really difficult to kind of get through the stage. So, but those will block you so that you can just kind of wait for a minute until the wind ends. But since I'm playing it a lot more risky, I'm just kind of playing through the wind, but or falling free in the wind. got us to Sonic. So some of these enemies just have other different effects or things that you have to do to defeat them. Like those guys, you can't flame them, you just have to kick them, and once their head flies off, then they're gone. So. And it's really easy to fall off of these areas. I mean, this platformer's got kind of a lot of weird ways you can fall off of areas, so it can be kind of challenging. So, and as you progress through the stages too, the enemies get more and more dense, and you know they take a lot more to get rid of and stuff. So, just kind of have to work with what you got here. And the more flame power you have, definitely the better, because you can really jip yourself later if you don't get enough flame power, because the bosses and things later in the stages will really hurt you. So as you progress through the stages, once you get through the final, like the 5th stage, you kind of loop back on the stages again, and the next time they have bosses in them, and they each have, you know, kind of their own way that you have to defeat them. So there's just, I don't know, it's kind of, if anybody's familiar with Super Ghouls and Ghosts, where you have to kind of go back, or just normal Ghouls and Ghosts, you have to go back through the stages again, you know, with more difficulty or whatever, so. So this game is 1 or 2 player. I've never done the 2 player because, like I said last time, I don't have a second Genesis controller. I probably will pick one up here pretty soon though, because there's a couple of games from my childhood that make a little bit more sense to play with, you know, 2 people instead of just 1 to kind of explain some things. So, so those will be coming in the future a little bit. I have another game as well that I was thinking about playing today instead of this one, because this isn't the next alphabetical game that I have, but it turns out that the FrameMeister doesn't like the bonus stages very much. It kind of freaks out, so I'm not really sure what to do about that at this point, but we'll circle back around to that, I guess, if I figure something out. So yeah, but the FrameMeister kind of freaks out with it, so okay, so these levels, there's some fish kind of floating around in here that those guys will take your oxygen away. I was trying to avoid him. And then there's other ones that'll give you oxygen to kind of help you through the stage, but it's the kissing fish. But anyway, you just kind of gotta watch your oxygen in this level, because it'll really hurt you. You know, you can get yourself into some pretty bad situations if you're not careful. Because the higher difficulties take away they kind of take away the number of enemies that will, or number of, yeah, I guess they technically are enemies. They'll take away from you more of those guys, so you have to, you know, do your best to conserve your oxygen. So, and this is the first stage that has a boss in it, so I'm kind of going out of my way a little bit to try and get some of the power-ups so that I don't have to worry about. And that's death. I don't know why I got too close to him. So you just kind of have to. I completely lost my train of thought. yeah, so those guys will give you oxygen back, and also just surfacing will give you oxygen. There's also those little power-up things there. So if you're running out of oxygen, it's just good to surface and kind of go back through. And, playing through this game, you know, as a child, this part was really difficult for me. I was having a hard time trying to get through here with, you know, with the power-ups and the oxygen management and, you know, all that stuff. So it was pretty challenging the first couple times through. But so it took me quite a while just to even get to the point where I could go back to the second round of levels. So this game had a couple of different versions. I have the Sega Genesis version, which I don't think is really the common version that everybody plays. It seems like there's a lot more people that play the SNES version instead. So so anyway, I have the Sega Genesis version. So okay, so this is the first fight with Scritch. So he's got this kind of invincibility field around him, and in order to hurt him, you have to kind of get in between when he has the field up. And he kind of rotates through some different patterns of moves. Like this one, he just shoots straight forward. This is actually a pretty optimal pattern right now. But he shoots one that kind of goes in a triad or a quad pattern like that. And then he rains some down, which is kind of annoying because you have to you know, try to avoid that, and it's all random, so you have to just be careful how you position yourself. Whoops. The roar hurts the bosses some, but not a whole lot to really kind of be worth it, so it just makes more sense to just, you know, flame them whenever you have the opportunity. So, and Scritch's invincibility field looks kind of weird where he'll take damage sometimes when it's up, but sometimes he won't take damage when it's down. It's just kind of how the thing is programmed. So if you have a giant flame, though, you can usually attack enough to get around it at least once, you know, during a pattern. So and this is really where you want to start having flame power, because if you have no flame power, like in my Dream Marathon run, that was bad. Okay, there we go. So that was much better than last time. So the first time I got here and defeated Scritch, I thought that was the end of the game and was, you know, really excited about that, and then kind of come to find out that no, haven't really beat him, got more stuff to do, so. So yes, there's Rex and Rexanne. So, I don't know. Also another kind of update from one of the last videos is I did look at the model number of the PVM that I'm using, and it's a 1342Q. So that's the model of PVM that I'm using. Alright, so now we're going to loop back through the stages again. So this is the second time through. So they go in reverse order. So this time we're going back through, you know, where we just got out of, and then we're going to get back to the jungle. That's really bugging me that I can't remember the name of this stage. So, and what's interesting about these frogs is, I mean, one, the enemies, you know, they come back out of blinking, or out of, you know, frozen really fast now. So you've got to, yeah, you got to get to them quick, or else they'll get to you. So. Oops. So and what's weird too is some of the hitboxes kind of retain after you get, you know, off of one of the fish or whatever. For some reason, you'll still take damage from some of those things. So I don't know. It's kind of annoying, but just if you position yourself pretty well, you should be able to avoid most of that. So the frogs, when they're jumping, if you flame them, I was going to say this earlier, if the frogs are jumping when you flame them, it'll instantly kill them. So there is a duck. There's no looking up, but you can duck in this game, so that helps. Okay, there's a heart. I needed that. So I always thought those guys were dropping rocks, but I think now that I'm older, I think they're just pooping on you. So that's cool. Thanks, birds. So yeah, the amount of enemies in this, you know, medium difficulty is there's quite a few more enemies. Just knowing the easy version and now playing on the medium difficulty, there's a lot more enemies. Uh-oh. Well, it's not a big deal because we can just go back right here and surface. Oh, trapped in there. So, and you really have to wait to make sure that the hitboxes are indeed, you know, over for those tentacle guys, because they'll grab you when you think you're fine. So, just gotta be real careful. Okay, so there's a heart here before the boss, which is good. So, and I'm trying to remember too, I think you retain your flame power for the most part when you die, but I think there's some possibility of losing it also, but I can't remember. I don't remember how the system works for that. Might die to this boss too, he hurts quite a bit. Kind of be unkind with the way he flies around, so. So, and he throws down fireballs, so. Yeah, I'm probably gonna die to this. Yep. So, it looks like you retain your firepower, but you don't retain your roar power, so. So also kind of another thing to note is that the flame hitbox is kind of weird on Rex's attacks, so. Man, why are those guys giving me so much trouble? So in each of these, some of these mushrooms will bounce you really high, some of them will bounce you kind of low, so the low ones will bounce you low and the high ones will bounce you high, so. I mean, I suppose you could, as kind of a weird strategy, I suppose you could kind of, use the invincibility period from falling to hurt it, but I don't know, that just seems kind of inconsistent, so. Ugh. Man. I have played this game, I promise. really bad. This is like embarrassing how bad I'm doing. Wow. That's why this is a Let's Play and not a speed run. Yeah, and he can, you know, even if you try and like sit still or whatever, you know, he can kind of swoop down and be awful, so. So if you're jumping on kind of these, if you're jumping on these mushrooms, you can hold the button and you'll jump higher. I'm hoping I don't game over. Because unfortunately with this game, you really do need a lot of your lives for farther in the game because the bosses get hard. So. Ugh, come on. Darn it. So when you continue, and 0 doesn't count as a life in this game, if you continue, you go back to the stage where you died, you just go back to the beginning and you have to do it again, so we'll just run through this again. See if I can find some more of the flame power up to make this go a little faster. So, I do really like the music in this game. It's pretty simple and, you know, but it's nice and grooving. You know, I like it. So, I mean, even like I even thought like the Berenstain Bears had decent music. So, so the Genesis sound quality is pretty good, I think. So, so I don't know. I like a lot of the music in these games. So they're really nice. Come on. There we go. Okay, already we've got more flame power than we did before, so. So the more flame power you have, the more damage you do. So it's, you know, it kind of floats around a little bit, like how much damage you'll actually do. But anyway, there is ways to increase damage, which is good. So when enemies are frozen, you can stand on them. You know, you can stand on them and grab stuff, so. Come here. Oops, I always forget about that one. I'm moving a little too late. Okay, now we've got full flame power, and also too, if you flame underwater, it kind of pushes enemies away, but That's weird. But it doesn't, you know, it doesn't do a whole lot. So it's just better to kind of avoid the enemies, I think. So this hitbox is going to hurt me, so because it holds you there long enough for you to get stuck and take damage, so. Okay, so let's try this again. This time with full flame power, full roar. Yeah, so see, it does, you know, a lot more damage. And then that's what the roar, you know, does quite a bit more damage too if you have a full charge of it. Okay, there we go. That was much better. Gosh, that was bad. Sorry about that, having to redo that. Okay, so here's another little demonstration again. You can't kill those. You have to flame those away, and then you have to kick those guys. So, and the dino's still falling, and he's still following, and he's still tired. Shout outs to Chrono Trigger also. If you still feel hungry. So there's a lot of little hidden things that you can do in these stages. You know, some of the flame power and some of the roar power is really hidden, so you have to look pretty hard to find it. So if you want full power, which most of the time you do, the boss of this stage, though, you don't really, because of the way he works, you don't really need full flame power. You just need kind of, you know, a strategy to get around him. So, and we'll get up to that here in a minute. Oh. There. That's interesting, actually. If you're going back down, it'll kind of carry you down with it for momentum, so. Uh-oh, this is bad. So I just kind of tap the button whenever the wind is coming because it, you know, you can still move forward a little bit then. Uh-oh, that's bad. So, and these things are tunnels. They'll kind of move you around to different parts of the stage, and you can get different power-ups and things by going through them. So some of the flame power-ups, you have to go through there to get them. You know, and the stages, you know, loop around some where they'll put you in, you know, disadvantageous positions if you go into certain ones. So you have to kind of work your way back around. So, and I think I jumped myself a little bit. There's kind of some weird things too. Like you can die in weird ways on some of these stages. Like there's kind of this weird thing that happens if you land on top of one of the curved tails that shoot you around. You can kill yourself doing that if you land on it strange. I don't know why. I haven't been able to figure that out, but sometimes you can just up and die for no reason on it, so it's kind of strange. So, and there is one section. Oops. There is one section that you have to go through one of the dinos to progress in the stage. It kind of dumps you out to the last or the boss of the stage, but that's not for a little bit yet. It's always good to be careful when you're jumping and kind of remembering where stuff is, because, you know, you can fall off of areas. You can fall off onto spikes and die, and you know that's what they're there for. So, so this game can really mess with you in certain areas. So and the wind will really mess with you. It'll put you in some really bad positions, and you know, just sometimes if you're unsure about where you need to go or this kind of thing, sometimes it makes sense to just wait for the wind to pass by and then kind of progress through, so you don't have to fight with, you know, potentially dying from that. So. So when you're rolling too, canceling out of your roll with a jump when you're going down some of these hills is really weird. Like the timing on it isn't what I think it should be. So you kind of have to, you kind of just have to spam the button sometimes, unfortunately, in order to get out of a roll. And so some of the bosses, the roar doesn't even work on them. So, you know, you just kind of have to, by trial and error, figure out, you know, does this work or not, and go from there. Yeah. So sometimes there's more like flame power than you actually need in a stage, which is kind of interesting. So, like you know, there's more power-ups than there is for the gauge. So. So, but this level is definitely a maze. Like you can, you know, you really have to figure out where you're going and what you need to do, and it's sometimes not straightforward where you need to go. The invincibility does protect you from spikes in this game. It's not like the first Mega Man game that if you get hit and then fall on the spikes, you'll die. So this game's a little bit more forgiving about that. So but you can see the wind really kind of moves you around, or if you're going with it, it pushes you along pretty quickly. Okay, now we're starting to get close. I really hate those bird enemies, they're annoying. And I think this is the wrong way. So this last part especially is a maze, trying to figure out which thing you need to use. Okay, I think this is the end. Yes, okay. Alright, so this boss, you can't just, flame him or whatever. You have to avoid his attacks, and then you have to hit these bones that are falling, but there's some golden ones that you have to hit, and those are the only ones that will damage him. So you don't really need a lot of flame power. You just need, I guess a little bit better luck on getting those. And so you have to hit a lot of them because there's no way to increase damage with this guy. You just kind of have to get him and hope you hit him, and if you don't hit him directly with them on the head, he won't take damage. It's just kind of a weird. There's just kind of a weird thing with this boss. So you just have to, figure out where the bones are and not do what I'm doing and taking massive damage on him, but just make sure you see him, and when you see him, flame and hit him in the head. That's really the only way you can hurt him, unfortunately. So. So there's kind of a golden place you have to stand, unfortunately, in order to hit him, and the bones just kind of appear. So you have to just do your best to put yourself in a good position and hit him. So this boss is just really tedious, is all. Yeah, but if you roar, nothing happens. So the roar power in this stage is superfluous or unimportant or unnecessary. So and also just kind of a side note as I'm waiting for all this to happen. When I was a child playing this game, the Sega Genesis that I have only had RF, so playing this now in RGB, even from the Dream Marathon, playing this now in RGB, it looks really nice. There's no snow in the video picture, if anybody's aware of that from their old TVs and stuff. So just old AV equipment had some snow in the picture, so there's no snow. It's super clear, and it's just, I don't know, it's really nice. So I kind of, when I was playing through this as a child, I got through, kind of I started getting through the first half of the game, and then just slowly progressing through the second half, just figuring out what to do and, how to defeat these bosses to move on and everything. And just getting through the levels, first of all, is difficult and time consuming. And I only had so much time each day that I could play games, so and I would get pretty frustrated with the games as well, so usually, I'd have to stop and take a break for a while and, do other things like schoolwork. Eventually was able to get to, I remember finally getting to this boss and wondering, what am I supposed to do with this boss, so, and eventually figuring it out after dying several times. But so in these bosses too, their health bar can go way down, and you still won't be able to defeat them. But this guy, even if you try and jump over him, because it looks like the exit is right behind him if you look, and so it looks like you should just be able to jump right over him to it, but there's a barrier in the way, and the barrier doesn't get moved until you defeat them. But even when they have 0 health in their health bar, they still continue to fight, which is kind of annoying because you don't get a 0 life, but they get 0 health, so it's kind of annoying. So this second inner work stage with the boss is pretty awful. It's over a pit of acid, and it's pretty annoying. So I remember getting to this one and really struggling with it because it's pretty difficult to get through everything, and just even staying alive is challenging. So these enemies here, these little green blob things, it's usually better just to leave them alone. Sometimes I'll flame them just to get them out of the way because they're annoying. But if you're wanting to be a little bit more safe, just leave them alone and just kind of work around them. So these guys split up and they're annoying, but you can kind of scroll them off screen, sort of. Scrolling things off screen in this game is really inconsistent. Like sometimes you can, but sometimes you can't. So, and it's good that you can short hop in this game because that's just kind of the best way to get around a lot of this nonsense. Usually if you see kind of one of those little bubble things floating around over a pit of acid, just leave it alone. Just save yourself a lot of trouble and just leave it alone. So most of the time they're just kind of better if you do leave them alone, but they just sometimes get in the way to the point where you have to get rid of them. But yeah, once you defeat all of them, then, or all 4 of them, then they disappear for good. So this dinosaur's got weird insides. The game's pretty linear, like you know, if you walk through it, it's, you know, pretty straightforward on where you need to go. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it'll loop you back around and you gotta figure it out. Oops. But it's pretty straightforward for the most part. Some of these platforms and the position of other things make it difficult to get to them. I meant to say this in the Berenstein Bears also, but didn't remember until later that I sometimes will talk about, you know, damage boosting, where you take damage from something and it moves you along throughout the stage. It's, you know, the really big place where that's a real big deal is in games like Super Metroid. But in the Berenstein Bears, there's no damage boosting, and in this game either, there's really no damage boosting. So you just have to. I mean, it's not really like a critical component of the game either. If you want to go through the stage quickly, it doesn't really matter. So on those platforms, when they explode, they'll let you jump off of them for, you know, quite a while. They're pretty generous on when they'll let you jump off of them, so. Okay, so this is the boss of this stage. It's like a giant, like, tumor thing. I don't know what this is, but it's gross. So, and yes, the acid is instant death, and it kind of shoots those things in weird directions, and it tries to hit you, and those little things track, so it's pretty difficult. So you just gotta be real careful what you're doing when you fall off of areas or jump or whatever. So. Like that. You can slip off really easily. Because Radical Rex is kind of slippery, so it's kind of challenging to make sure that you stay in a position to not fall off. So. So I've killed myself a lot just by kind of bouncing around accidentally and falling on spikes, so I just kind of have learned to wait until my momentum becomes 0 before I do anything else. So you can stand on top of those guys and they won't hurt you, but you do need to make sure you don't get under them, so because they'll crush you. Or they'll move you into spikes or whatever, so they're not nice. Okay, so that's 1/2, so then we have to kind of traverse carefully underneath to get to the other side. So yeah, this is the boss I really don't like, just because he's really difficult to maneuver around and damage and stuff, so, or hurt, I guess. So So on the other side, you can kind of gyp the boss, sort of. You can. There's a position that you can stand in where you can hurt him while not having to mess around with all these platforms. So that's nice. So, but kind of as soon as those things spawn, you really just have to kind of go for it. So, yeah, so if you stand here, you can, you can do quite a bit of damage to the boss. Because the hurt box on it goes out quite a ways, so you can, uh-oh. So when it's kind of exhaling like that, you can damage it as well, so. There we go. All right. So then this turns normal color, and it's kind of annoying because you have to jump and kick it and then move forward to get through it, so. This is the hardest boss right here. It's this silly thing. Okay. Now we're back to the swamp. So yeah, and the piranha can jump at you, so they're pretty awful. So when you're climbing on these ropes, you're invincible, which is a good thing to use, especially since there's so many enemies. You can just stay on there and avoid them. These things you can't really defeat. You have to just go around them. I don't know. There's not really much you can do about them, unfortunately. Some enemies, it's just easier if you just walk around them rather than try and mess with them. Actually, wasn't sure I made that jump, huh? So what's nice is, I really don't like when they do that. That annoys me. And I lost my train of thought. Cool. Oh well. Seems to be happening a lot today for some reason. Yeah, so for those guys, you just kind of have to go in between when they're attacking, and that's really all you get. So in sliding, will give you a little bit more momentum, so you can jump onto different areas. Better. Now that I know there's spikes down there. They always seem to put the darts in really inconvenient places, like, you're just gonna take damage anyway, so it's like, it's just kind of silly. But since there's more enemies on different difficulty levels, you know, all that stuff is, you know, kind of relative, I guess. Oops. I always make sure I'm right up against the spikes before I jump, just because sometimes the current will push you around in just enough to kill you. So I just always make sure I'm right up against them before I jump. The invincibility just does not last very long at all. So if you're gonna use it, you gotta go for it. So that enemy is called a burster, and it bursts, and it just, I don't know, it just hurts from, you know, the stuff that it throws out. So in the dinosaur egg things, you know, will help you know where things are safe to jump or not, which is nice. Pretty helpful. So, and unfortunately, some of the enemies can just troll you by being in a really bad position when you come up. It's not anything you can or can't do about it. It's just kind of, if they're there, they can potentially damage you, so. Okay, they're just a nuisance. There is death down under here. Real careful. Well, that's annoying. Can't do anything about that. So, and as you probably noticed in this stage, there's a lot of these bugs flying around. And that kind of indicates what boss this is going to be. We're going to fight a giant hornet's nest, wasp's nest. Wasp and hornet is a warnet. So you can kind of get the bugs in a good pattern where you can just flame them and jump, and you'll avoid getting hurt by any of them. So and again, there's 4 openings here, so we have to go to the other side and get rid of it. So remember, kids, if you have a wasp or a hornet's nest in your backyard, use a flamethrower. With adult supervision. So, and you have to wait till these things open, but I just always keep a flame on them just because it's, you know, easier to make sure that you hit it. There we go. So that lowers the platform. Okay, so now we're back into the jungle area. So Scritch is going to be at the end, and that will be the final boss. So and that guy's still hanging out. All right, so let's finish this up here. Yeah, you can kind of quickly run through the levels with, I was holding down. You kind of quickly run through the levels with the skateboard, but that's not always optimal because they hide stuff in a lot of areas, so it makes more sense to kind of get off the skateboard and look around and make sure you can get flame power and, you know, other other power-ups because you really need them in this. You really need them in here. So. You have to just kind of jump it. Hope there's a platform down there, because there's big sections of lava in these stages, and so you never really know where stuff's gonna take you. So like that. So the enemies do have a special reaction when they're getting hurt, so it's always good to look for those. I really don't like those guys. Okay, let's do this again. Yeah, so, but I guess as a side note, I'm finding this medium difficulty quite a bit harder than the easy difficulty I'm used to. So, yeah, I'm not like super into platformers. You know, I do my best, but so this one is pretty challenging, even on medium. I don't know how to avoid taking damage there, actually. Oh, that's not good. Ah, there was the heart I was looking for. Last life, I was wondering where it was. Yeah, so it's not always good to fall, you know, hoping that there's going to be ground under there to catch you. So, because that got me the first time I went through here. I think I actually ended up, the first time I got to this stage, I think I was so tense and nervous that something was going to happen that I ended up just kind of beating it first time through. There we go. But yeah, it's tough. So I just kind of blitzed through it the first time just to get around it, which probably wasn't the greatest thing because it's good to have the flame power against the final boss. So, and also the roar, if stuff is already frozen, will defeat it, which is good. Get you out of some tight spots if you need. Okay, we're just gonna avoid that. Yeah, I just remember getting to this stage and being so nervous that I was gonna die or something like that just played through it till I beat it. because there are continues like you saw in this game, and so that can that helps a lot. Alright, I think this is it. Okay, so here's the final boss battle with Scritch. So he's got kind of this bomb pattern. He's got little lightning bolts that will just kind of travel along the ground. And then he's got a flamethrower. And that's usually the best time to hurt him, is when he's using the flamethrower. So you can just kind of stand underneath him. So the roar only does so much, so it's, I don't know, it's just kind of like an extra, almost like a swag kill at the end if you want to do it that way. But yeah, you just kind of have to pick your openings, run in between, and, you know, just move quickly. So kind of the best pattern he can give you is he can just keep using his flamethrower like this, which is good. I mean, if you don't mind taking a little extra damage, you can get some extra hits in there. As long as you're not crazy. So and I actually find this second Scritch pattern to be a lot easier than the first one, because it doesn't have that lightning that rains down that can hit you even if you're standing underneath him. Oh yeah, and I just remembered another thing I was going to mention is another kind of like, I don't know, correction or update from the last video is the reset button on my Genesis isn't actually broken, it's just the reset button that's kind of weird. It doesn't hit the contact anymore, so I'm going to try and fix that here at some point. But so that's the final boss, and that's the end of Radical Rex. So we've released Scritch's magic, and we've saved Rexanne. And we all dance, and Rex pulls out a, a double long skateboard, because we're all rad and radical, and keeping up the radness and all of that. So but that's it. That's Radical Rex. I hope you guys like that. This run wasn't nearly as clean as the easy mode run that I did for the Dream Marathon, but I wanted to do you know, just a medium difficulty to try that out. So if you guys like the video, give a thumbs up. Again, if you like the video, we tend to try and do more of that video, or just different parts of it. And so if you guys give it a like, or enough likes, if you guys give it like 5 likes or something, maybe I'll try playing it on hard mode or something like that. So we're pretty new to doing games and stuff for recording. We've only done this since 2015 now. So so just the amount of people that we have following us is kind of low, or subscribed to us. So but anyway, we'll do what we can, because we want to make the games interesting and just our channel interesting for you to watch and listen to. And thanks for tuning in. And this has been ZXRyuu and Radical Rex. We'll catch you next time.